Councillor Davies.
Just with the memo, it appears to kind of suggest a bit of a change in direction from intra to inter-regional rail, passenger rail or transport investigations. Could you clarify what specific governance directions or decisions have authorised this shift from intra to inter-regional focus?
There hasn't been any governance direction shift in that respect. We've been running concurrent conversations with the South Island RTC Chairs group as well, because they were there was a request to the Otago Southland RTC to look at intra and inter-regional public transport as well. So we, at the last South Island RTC Chairs meeting last week, there was a discussion around this as well, some options being put forward about doing some work collaboratively, and that would look at the opportunity to extend that into further south, beyond Canterbury. We could also limit it just to Canterbury and do our own piece, which is the intra-regional piece to it, and that would the funding we would use would go towards that. But we could also pool our funding and do something broader across the South Island if that was where council saw fit to do so.
And so when would that kind of decision be made if we were to put it to year 4 as you're recommending?
Sorry, I'm just not...
The pool with other South Island PTAs.
So we said to the South Island RTC chairs last week that we would await the discussions from our discussions here at council between now and December. There would need to be a paper to go to, based off our feedback here, back up to the South Island chairs early next year.
Is the South Island Regional Transport Committee Chairs Group a statutory committee?
No, it's not.
You got a further question there, Joe?
I'll leave it on that.
Councillor Mackay.
I think my question's probably sort of aligned with Councillor Davies' questions there. And can just somebody clarify for me, because I think the governance of this is in the Canterbury Regional Transport Committee and the South Island ones, and anything, decisions that come out, we have to obviously endorse, I think is the word. And certainly where funding is required, of course, we do have a say, I guess, through a long-term plan. So given the conversation that we just had before around the direction being economically based, I mean, I do think there's some sense in option 3, working with the suggestion around what does it look like in a wider regional perspective, a South Island's perspective.
Just in that context of the South Island, the money that we would have here, we've got 525,000. If we were to pool our funding with the RTCs in the south, there's the opportunity that this might not cost as much because we're collaborating. So therefore, our contribution might be less. So this is where staff have been trying to balance working collaboratively because of the opportunities that brings, but also the funding opportunities and how much we can balance the cost for our ratepayers. So there's savings in that regard, and off the back of the conversation we've just had around revenue, it's a challenging time.
Joe?
I mean, I'm just not really satisfied with such a shift in focus from both what the CRTC's original resolution is and also what we've funded through the long-term plan. For that focus to be shifted for an external non-statutory committee or group such as the South Island Chairs Group, for me, if it's going to be that kind of a shift, it's either got to come through this council or it's going to come through RTC.
Absolutely. Staff haven't made any decisions. We've just been exploring opportunities for collaboration across the South Island because we hear through both our own RTC processes, regional public transport plan processes, etc., about rail in particular, but also public transport more broadly, and the connections down south in particular, because we don't have any sort of broader connections really at this stage other than the intercity bus. So the opportunities for that is what we've been exploring. We haven't made any decisions. The current RTC recommendations and the advice that was provided to the RTC still stands. So we are still looking at the opportunities around intra-regional within Canterbury, and there were options put forward around up to Amberley, down south to Ashburton, Timaru. So we could do that, but we're just looking at in the context of how much money do we actually have, and we've explored those options. So it's coming back now to our council to make a decision as to what you want to do. Do you want to progress with this work as an intra-regional Canterbury piece, or do you want to explore something further beyond our boundaries of Canterbury? And when do you want to do that based on the funding and challenges around our fiscal position?